Great. So marketing science as a field, and one of the key proponents of that is the marketing mix modeling that you do. So let's start with the easy one for our audience. What is marketing mix modeling?
It's not a new technique, first of all. It's basically a regression technique, a mathematical technique of taking variables, separating them out and working out which of the variables actually had an impact on the thing that matters to a marketer, sales of product. So the simplest way we tend to explain it is like unbaking a cake. You can see there's a chocolate cake there. How do you find out how much flour, fat, sugar, etc. went into it? And so the process is using regression. It's a statistical process, then looking at the confidence that you have of the answers that you get from the statistics to say, I can say with confidence that it was TV that drove this, it was digital that drove that, it was promotion that drove this, my underlying brand value is that. That's how it works.
So on that question, because then it requires a lot of investment, like they keep changing the variables accordingly, and it accordingly kind of gives the result. So do you need kind of a big system to do that? For like, if I'm a CMI with the question that I like, okay, now where do I like, is it too complicated? Is it too simple? Or how will a CM approach it from that point of view?
So I'll unpack that in a couple of different ways. If we look at the history of MMM, like this regression technique's been used for maybe 50 years or so. Previously, you'd only have probably the preserve of the largest companies who spend a lot on advertising, who could actually afford to do this, who could afford to invest in econometricians, these statisticians who do this, to separate that out. It's an expensive process. You've got to get all this data. The data collection takes a long time. So historically, you might get someone doing like 1 or 2 dips a year maximum. And the data collection alone could take a year to get all those bits of data. So let's say the data that we're looking at is not just media, but it's extra elements like what's competitive activity at the time? What was the weather doing during that time? Like all of these things that could actually influence a sale, they're just as important as the media variables. Collecting that data takes a long time. And then the practice of actually looking and understanding the results can take time. Now that's historically what we had within MMM. Great technique, very slow and expensive to do. Over the past certainly 10, 15 years or so, what we've seen is an acceleration for 2 reasons. One, because it's needed for a very good reason. We're losing other forms of data. So MMM is becoming one of those that we could rely on more. But secondly, because we've got like much more processing power than we used to have, things can be much quicker. And so what used to be a very long process of wrangling data into something manageable can now be done much better because of the advances in machine learning and that kind of stuff. And so we've got like a much better process that could be done more quickly. That gives more advertisers access to it. More advertisers have access to it means that knowledge about this has grown. It's grown very, very well. And we've got a lot of different companies bringing in different techniques for how to use it. You can use it instead of just once across a year. You could use it far more frequently. We're seeing a lot of companies use it like all the time, constantly, which is great.